Have you ever stopped to think about how much advice is out there? I mean, it seems like everybody has an opinion, but how often do we stop to think and evaluate whether or not that advice is actually valid? It's great to get advice and different perspectives on different things, but with personal finance advice, for example, how often do we stop and ask ourselves, is the advice that I just received, is it valuable? Is the person that I received this advice from, are they wealthy? The person that I received this advice from, are they living the lifestyle that I want? And if the answer to that is no, then why are you taking advice from them? I think a lot of people, especially in the personal finance area, they always say debt is bad, debt is a horrible thing. But I have a different perspective on that. And that is that debt, if used properly, is an incredible accelerant. When I first started investing in real estate, I received a ton of advice. After owning multiple rental properties and receiving passive income each and every month, I can proudly say that a lot of the advice I received was pretty much counterproductive and complete and utter garbage. Over the past little while, as I've connected with a lot of other real estate investors, I've learned so much from them, and when I was just beginning, they pointed me in the right direction. One of the biggest things that they taught me right off the bat was that debt, if used properly, is one of the most incredible assets that we have at our fingertips. I remember one day my mom, she said to me, "Bryce, if I had the amount of debt that you have, I would not be able to sleep at night." And I just I just laughed and said, yeah, that's probably true, but I love debt and I fully intend on taking on more debt as soon as possible. Real estate is all about leverage. You can control $50,000 like it's $250,000. Now, I know that math seems a little bit extreme, but let me explain a little bit more. Real estate is incredible because you reap all the benefits of the full asset of the property. You get all of the profits and everything from the full asset of the property for 1/5 of the price. With real estate, there are 4 different ways that you make money: appreciation, principal paydown, cash flow, and the tax benefits. If your property is completely paid off and you're not using debt, you're not maximizing all 4 of these income streams to their fullest potential. So the first one is appreciation. And appreciation is great, but when I run my numbers on a rental property, I do not calculate for appreciation. The reason for that is because appreciation is kind of like the cherry on top of the sundae. The appreciation is great, but it is by no means guaranteed. It's awesome and I love it, and when it happens, it's one of the best things in the world, but like I said, I do not calculate it into my numbers because it's not guaranteed. In America, typical home prices usually appreciate anywhere from 3 to 5% annually. That's very dependent on your market, but for easy numbers, we're just gonna say 5% appreciation across the board. That means that all properties increase in value each and every year. Of course, there are always exceptions to this rule. I mean, your property might be a dump, or we may have a 2008 market downturn, but typically speaking, home prices appreciate. I was trying to think of a different way or a better way to explain this, and this is kind of what I thought of. Let's say we have a property for $100,000 and we purchase it with all cash, no loan whatsoever. Assuming 5% appreciation, over the next 10 years, that property would increase in value by $62,000. That means at the end of those 10 years, your paid off property is not worth $100,000 anymore, it's now worth $162,000. Let's take that same $100,000 and instead of purchasing one property without a loan, what if we spread that money across 5 properties, each with a loan, and only putting 20% down? So that would mean that $20,000 is being used as the down payment in each of these 5 properties, and then $80,000 is still left over as a loan. This means that we're able to purchase $500,000 worth of real estate for $100,000. Again, assuming the 5% appreciation, at the end of these 10 years, That means that all of our properties combined have increased in value by $314,000. The total value of our portfolio is now $814,000, and we spent $100,000 to make that. That is a 314% return instead of a 62% return with the exact same amount of money. In just appreciation alone, that's literally a 5 times return. I'm okay with that. Number 2 is cash flow. Now, with cash flow, you need to make a special effort to take everything into account. A lot of people will say, hey, I'm renting this for $1,000, my mortgage is $500, cool, I make $500 a month with the leftover. And that's not quite right. You need to make sure that you're accounting for maintenance, you're accounting for taxes, insurance, vacancy, capital expenses. There's a lot of other things that you need to take into account, and if you're not, you're gonna get bit. When it comes to buy and hold real estate, cash flow is the number one most important thing. If you are not cash flowing money each and every month, you're losing money. If you cannot cash flow on a property each and every month, I will not buy that property. A lot of people say, well, I'm just gonna let the property appreciate. Even if I'm losing money each and every month, that property should appreciate, right? Yeah, supposedly, but like I said, I do not calculate appreciation into my numbers because it's not guaranteed. That is just too risky for me. If there is a market downturn, I want to make sure that even if I'm upside down on my loan or whatever it may be, that I'm still cash flowing and I can cover all of my expenses regardless. So if cash flow is so important, then why don't we pay off the properties? Because when we pay off the property, we don't have a mortgage. So instead of only making $500 a month in cash flow, we're making closer to $700 or $800 a month because we're not paying a bank all this interest. So you're right, while this does maximize cash flow, there's something you're forgetting, and that is maximizing the return on your investment. So we're gonna use the same numbers as before. We're just going to assume that we purchase a property for $100,000. So if we say that rent is $1,000, we're going to take out, $250 a month for all of the expenses and fees. That leaves us with $750 per month return on investment. And again, this is $100,000 cash that we purchased this property with. There's no loan on this property. That means we take $750 a month, multiply it by 12 months, and that comes out to $9,000. To find the ROI for this investment, we take that $9,000 and we divide it by the $100,000, which was our initial investment. $9,000 divided by $100,000 is 9% return on investment. Now, in comparison, let's take that $100,000 property and get a loan on it. We're gonna put 10% down on a 30-year mortgage. With a 4.5% interest rate, we're going to put down $10,000. That means $90,000 is a loan that we'll be paying the bank for. Okay, so now our numbers change a little bit. So we have the same $1,000 per month in rent. We still have our $250 a month in expenses, but now we also have $456 per month as a mortgage that we're paying to the bank. So that now means that our monthly cash flow is $293 per month. Multiply that by 12 months in a year, and our net income for the year is $3,527. If we now take that $3,500, divide it by the $10,000 that we invested, that comes out to a 35% return on investment. I don't know about you, but I would much rather have 35% instead of 9%. Very similarly to what I shared in the previous example with the appreciation, if we do this with 10 more properties, we're now making $35,000 per year net income instead of just the $3,500 on one property. Whereas before, you could take that $10,000, dump it into one property, and make $9,000 per year. The third way to make money with real estate and why I love debt so much is the principal paydown. In the previous example, when I talked about having a loan or a mortgage on a property, I just took that $456 as our loan payment and I treated it as an expense. But what's cool is it's not really an expense. It's more like a forced savings account. If you've ever looked at an amortization chart, it shows the kind of the life of your loan. it will show the amount that you're paying to principal. It shows that the amount that you're paying to interest at your bank. And if you notice, the longer that you pay on this loan, the more and more money gets added to the principal that you pay down on your loan each and every month. It's typically just $1 or $2 that gets added to the principal each and every month as you pay this off, but it's still something. Over time, there's less and less interest that you pay and more principal that gets deposited into your deferred savings account, essentially. And you'll get to cash that out when you sell the property. The fourth way to make money with real estate is tax savings. You get so many tax benefits with real estate. There's a common misconception when it comes to rental properties, and that is that the income generated from that rental property is taxed as capital gains at a lower rate, and that's just not true. The money that you make from rental properties is taxed just like regular income, any other income that you would make from a W-2 job or any other way. However, you have the option now to write off the interest that you're paying on this loan along with depreciation and any other expenses that you have. When you do this, this lowers your taxable income, meaning that you're paying less money to Uncle Sam. On the flip side, let's keep those same numbers. Let's assume that you have one property, $100,000 paid off completely, and you're making $9,000 net cash flow per year. In this example, you don't have a loan on the property, meaning you're not paying interest. That means that when you try and depreciate the property over 27.5 years, you're actually not offsetting all of that $9,000 in income that you made over the course of the year. Depending on your tax bracket, this can really screw you come tax time. I was once looking at a chart and it showed that 90% of the richest people in America made their millions, made their fortune through real estate. The reason for that is because they're not paying taxes. That's why if you're an investor using leverage, using debt to purchase rental properties, you can almost completely avoid paying taxes whatsoever. In conclusion, I hope it's really easy to see why I love using debt to purchase real estate instead of just paying for it with cash. A lot of people are gonna say, you know what, yeah, well, the risk is lower. And you know what, yeah, I don't know. I'm not so sure. I'm not really convinced. In my opinion, if you're in this situation and you're really just not comfortable using debt, I would say look at the numbers, look at the returns and see which has the higher return. And if you're really concerned about that, if you're concerned about a market downturn, whatever it may be, I would say use leverage, but have a good stockpile of cash per property. So if you're worried about a downturn, if you're worried about the risk, make sure that you have $5,000 or $10,000 per cash just sitting aside in a rainy day fund per door so that if something were to happen, you'll be totally covered. It's my opinion that knowledge is power, and if you do things right, you can absolutely maximize your returns and do way better in the market than you could if you were buying with all cash. That's it for this video, guys. Hopefully that all made sense. If it didn't, then be sure to comment down below and hopefully I can try and explain things a little bit better. But I hope you can see why I love debt and I use it as leverage all the time to purchase more and more real estate. Thanks so much for watching, guys. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next week.